Hi, I'm Julian, and this is the WLB Podcast. Welcome to yet another episode of the WLB Podcast. I'm privileged to have Bhargavi Swami with us today. I'm so glad she agreed to join us on a Saturday afternoon. In addition to being the CEO of Excel Corporation, which is a leading human resources and training company in India and abroad, she is also a role model for any podcaster. Her podcast, People Who Matter, has amassed more than 2 million subscribers from all over the world in a short span of time. I'm excited to get started because I'm sure this is going to be a fun and great learning experience for not just me, but for everyone listening. Thank you for joining us, Bhargavi.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you so much, first of all, for providing a platform like this for a lot of women to come and share their stories. And like you rightly said, to inspire more women to probably get back to workforce. That's been like a mission of me and my company. So we're an all-woman HR consulting company. I think you missed that in the introduction, and I thought I should add it here. So it makes it even more relevant that we talk about these kind of issues. And nowadays, Saturdays, Fridays, Thursdays, they're all the same these days. So I'm just glad that I'm contributing in some way or the other, sitting comfortably at home here. I hope everyone's safe and keeping well wherever they are.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. And I would like to learn a lot more about you. How did you start this journey? So just could you introduce yourself to our listeners? What is it? Yeah.
All right. So I'm trying to keep it as brief as possible because when you say journey, suddenly there's like a flashback of 10 years, 12 years of your life that quickly comes like a quick show reel. I'm a big buff of video and audio. I love communication, so I always visualize whatever I want to say or do. So that's what happened just now. But so we started Excel Corporation. Now it's nearly 11 years ago. The company was started by my father. My father, Mr. Rajaraman Swami, is a bigger feminist than I am. And he has 2 daughters. So hence he started a company where women can comfortably join work, continue working through different life cycle changes. So, when you start out your career as a woman, you have all the support of the family. And then you get married. Sometimes you have to relocate. You have to follow the partner at times. Or at times there is maternity that comes in the way. And you drop out of work for 5 years, 6 years. Some people never come back. Some people struggle and come back and take lower roles and, just try to fit in. And the last thing is, of course, senior care. A lot of us live with our parents or in-laws or extended families. And often the care of senior parents comes on the shoulders, very able shoulders of women. So because of these life cycle changes, women have 100 reasons why they are not able to succeed or not able to, progress beyond the first 5 years of their career. So my father saw it very early, and he decided that he should start a company which is all women, except for him, of course, and which supports women from not just cities, but our company employs women from marginal sectors, tier 2, tier 3. So 10% of our recruitment for our own company has always been from towns and villages. Even girls who are not able to operate computers, who are not able to talk in English. So we are a Bangalore head office company. And then we spread our wings to Chennai and then Mumbai. We had a very, very nice office in all these locations until COVID happened. And right now, of course, we're all completely virtual. And our Bangalore head office, of course, remains. Our company has been trying to not only provide cutting edge HR consulting services, not just in recruitment. We also do something called virtual HR services, which is like outsourcing the HR work of startups who can't afford a full-time HR team. We outsource that work. We become their, HR. And we represent them in different forums and different platforms for them. So that's what we do. And then, of course, we have training programs like future skill development for the youngsters between the age groups. I'm starting at the age group of 13, 14, because we feel that's where your decision making is extremely critical when you're a teenager, right? Your future sometimes is dependent on the decisions or the exposure you have as a kid. A lot of us grew up with only family who are engineers and doctors and lawyers. We didn't really know social media influencers growing up. There was no social media. Let's be fair. There was no social media, but we didn't know about careers which were like advertising, or we didn't know about careers which are biotechnology or space. And you had very few people who you knew in your circles, right? But today's world is very different because social media, internet has really opened it up. So we want to help young adults, we won't even call them kids anymore, young adults channel their minds, get exposed to the opportunities out there, understand
Mhm.
what is required. And if somebody wants to be their own startup and their own entrepreneur, something which we love, we'd love to encourage that in youngsters as well. So that's what the training program does. And yeah, so on and so forth. We do 100 other things, but yeah, this is the primary of what Excel and I do with it. I
Wonderful.
joined the company around 9.5, 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, it's a family business. It's very easy. Usually, the entire family is involved, one way or the other. It's just a matter of permanence. Like, is it just a stopover for you for 6 months because it's a summer break, or you're waiting for a job offer letter, or is it a full-time commitment you want to do for the company? In my
Mhm.
case, I actually had started up a smaller company which was into media communication. We were producing documentaries, short films.
Oh,
So
oh,
my
wow.
background is a mass comm background first, and then a HR background. So I did my master's from Simbi, and it was in films and television and communication and content. That's where I excelled in. So I joined Excel Corporation more from, okay, pocket money. I'll be working on the marketing and branding of the company. So I'll build the brand story. And HR companies having a brand is not very common. It's a,
That's
it's a lesser known industry. It's not very, what do I say, cool or sexy industry to say, oh my God, look at my product, because it's a service. So you have to very intelligently build a brand around that, brand story around it. So to fund my dream of having a documentary short film company, which was also doing corporate films, I had to work here so I could get some money so I could fund my dream, which is the other one. So that is how my journey started in Excel. And before I knew it, I was completely sucked into this. It's been 10 years now. I'm the CEO of the company. Yeah, a lot of challenges that have come along the way, a lot of opportunities have come along the way, and a lot of
Mhm.
innovations have come along the way. So I'm very grateful for all that life has thrown my way, I would say, to get me where I am.
That is amazing. Wow. Like, I think that is the briefest you could summarize your life journey into. But wow, what a journey. I didn't know about the training programs, and that is so amazing because I think a lot of women don't even have the awareness. Forget about women. I think nobody in our youth actually knew that
Yeah,
okay, YouTuber is a profession or
yeah,
podcasting
yeah,
is a profession.
yeah. Exactly,
So
exactly.
making them aware about that is amazing. So do you go to colleges or do you have people
Right.
come
So
over to
we
your office?
we kind of these were one of the crazy things you did during COVID. So it was like a mastermind that happened during COVID. So we've been doing virtual sessions. We've tied up with, of course, a few institutions, but we are doing a lot of private sessions as well. So our website, if you go there, it's www.excelcorporation.in. There's a page
Mhm.
called FSDP, which is the Future Skill Development Program. It'll just give you a step by step of registration. Our
Mhm.
courses are running, I think, for the next 6, 7 months for sure. We have trainers on board. Everything is virtual because we know the world is not going to get back to normalcy anytime soon. So we're very aware of it. And we want to build, I think, accesses for people through these
Mhm.
platforms in a very comfortable way where you're safe, you're at home, you're able to
Mhm.
follow it. Right now, we're running summer programs because it's summer holidays for a lot of young adults. People are in
Yeah.
between jobs, first internships. So it's a very, very cool time right now to join these kind of courses and explore further, seeing what is out there. So, yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for mentioning the link. I'll definitely add that to the description. So,
Sure.
I think you've become what young girls always aspire to. Like, there is this quote that says, become the CEO that your mom wants you to marry. And I think you've become that. How does it feel? How does it feel like when you took over the reins?
So I'm going to correct that quote a bit. I've become the CEO my mom dreamt of. I don't think she ever dreamt of me marrying a CEO. That didn't really matter to her, like who the partner was. He should be a good human
Uh-huh.
being.
Mhm.
But I think she cared more about what I could make of myself. So, yeah, I think, yeah, that's the modification. But thank you. I think anybody who's ever gotten anywhere in life, right? Whether it's an executive level, it's a manager level, it's a CEO level, it is a
Mhm.
lot, of course, about your hard work, your commitment, your sincerity, your patience, honesty, everything. But it
Mhm.
cannot be achieved, at least in a context like India. You can't achieve it without the support of the family or your partner. So I have a very, very supportive family. I'm very grateful to God for a very
Mhm.
understanding partner. My husband's a media lawyer. His career is
Mhm.
extremely demanding. He is somebody who's like constantly, on the move, on the call, and things like that. So despite that, he's been an equal partner in the marriage, which is brilliant for me. And my extended family, my in-laws, my parents, they're extremely supportive. They're very proud people. So I think when girls achieve, right, you have very proud families behind them. When a girl achieves, a girl soars, you know that she has gotten this far because of a lot of love, a lot of blind faith in her, and a lot of support of the family behind her. So I think my CEO story is no different. I'm very blessed to have a great family, but I would definitely credit myself for the hard work, the innovation, opportunity, seeing an opportunity and seizing it. I think that's very important. A lot of us miss out on this huge O word called opportunity because we just kind of live life without observing it. I was also guilty of it. I'm sure a lot of people are guilty of it. Sometimes you're on cruise control, you're on autopilot mode for some parts of your life. Don't even know what you've done. Like, I can't remember a few years of my college life. I can't remember the first few years of my life in Excel. It's a blank. Like, I don't know what I was doing. I mean, I definitely didn't do anything significant. Hence, it's a blank. It's a blur. So I'm thinking, so those were my autopilot and those were my, like cruise control modes of life. And then suddenly I realized, oh my God, I'm wasting life. Life is too precious. It's too short. And, there are these awakenings everybody gets every now and then.
Yeah.
A friend gets married, you suddenly like, oh my God, we're all too old. Oh no, come on, you have to do something before you get married. Like, take off. Your friends have babies, and then you're like, oh my God, it's time to have kids. Okay, take off before you actually go and have a kid. So there are a lot of wake up calls, and then there are pandemics. I mean, if this is not a wake up call, I don't know what is. I know so many people who wanted to pursue something in life, and then because of pandemic, they've changed their focus 100 degrees. They were extremely corporate, professional oriented. Now they've become NGO and social workers. There were people who were extremely passionate about a specific area, and then they realized, oh my God, the healthcare sector really needs more people, and they've started developing tech-based products for healthcare. And so, I mean, these are your small wake up call. This is a huge wake up call, but I'm saying life gives you a lot of wake up calls, a lot of opportunities. As women, as people in general, you have to learn to start keeping your eyes wide open for those opportunities to pass by. I'm not saying there's only one opportunity that comes in life. I'm a big believer of second and third chances for everybody in life because, I mean, we're all learners of life. Yeah, we're all students of life. I always call myself a student of life. So it's okay. If you miss this, don't think it's the end of the world. There will be something else that comes up, but start identifying when it comes up because life also has a limited stock. It's all like, okay, boss, you missed the first one, I gave you second. You missed the second, I gave you a fifth. Now, come on, I don't have any more left to give you. So yeah, keep your eyes wide open is what I would say for sure.
Nice, that's amazing. And there were so many key takeaways in just one of those answers. Brilliant. So I would like to know, like both of you being into media, like your earlier company was also in made it. I mean, you started your company. What was it called?
It was a subsidiary of Excel Corporation. So it was just known as Excel Production, like the baby unit of Excel. So it was Excel Production. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So what did you do in that? Like, what was your
so I started it with a partner of mine. We both were fresh postgraduates out of Simbi, and we just were like crazy, like we will do something and we shall achieve and we'll show them all. And this was in 2010 when internet wasn't that bombastic. I mean, it was just catching up, right? We had just finished the Orkut phase and we were coming into Facebook. I'm talking about back in the day. Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't very easy for your work to travel the world, but it was not so difficult that now you couldn't knock on doors. So I remember we did projects for MTV because we had seniors who were working in MTV. So it was very good to connect with our alumni. And that's a great tip, guys. If you ever feel you need to knock on doors, start with home. Start first with your own parents, cousins, family. If that doesn't work, go to your college level, school level, reach out to your alumni. That's worked wonders for me. It still does. When I have to reach out to guests for our podcast, sometimes I just run short of like really good guests. I just reach out to my own alumni saying, please help. I need a guest this week. Come on, guys. And now luckily the podcast is a brand now. So they feel very privileged to come onto it. So I'm happy about that. But I've begged a lot as well. So it's okay. So anyway, moving back to this. So we did projects for MTV. We did projects for RBI. Grameen Kuta was their microfinancing organization. So we did script work for their films for third party. We worked for cultural films for the Karnataka government, the Tamil Nadu government, where we had a little easier access. Hence, it was these two governments we worked with. We also sent a lot of film representations to NASCOM. Wells Fargo was another bank that we pitched work to. Hamleys, acquired by Reliance. Again, we had a common connection there, so he was able to send us work because we were first timers and we were like, please give us an opportunity, and we got it. So there were a lot of really nice stories that happened this way. There were hundreds of others that we did. But one thing we realized with this, at least back in the day, was you need deep pockets to be in the media business. It is not that you produce today, you get your profits tomorrow. Now things have changed. It's a lot better with OTT coming in. But again, 2010, 2011 was not exactly that. You had to really put in your money, wait for 3-4 years to actually see any kind of returns and profits. So I learned it very fast in business that unless there's profit coming in, there's really no point being the founder and entrepreneur of any company. Because if you can't pay your staff, you can't pay yourself, you can't have a quality of life, it's really not worth it. All those, unless you have really good, now you have investors who are ready to invest in media companies. Back in the day, I'm sure there were investors, but basically, unless you had deep pockets, it was very difficult to fund your own businesses. Basically, that's what it was. And that is the reason you needed to really get good capital, good investors in. If you didn't have contact with those kind of people, then you start thinking innovatively, what else can I do? So I started funding my business with my other work. I worked somewhere else, and then I would moonlight as a creative person in my own company. So that's what I did for a few years. And then I realized I couldn't do justice to the roles, the senior roles I was getting in the HR company. So hence I had to cut back focus. I sold out. That was my first successful exit. I sold the company to my friend. I got out, and then I just continued with Excel Corporation. But that creative bug never kept quiet. It never died. Hence, I think podcast was basically a cry for help through that, for sure.
I think that's a beautiful way of channeling your creative energy right now. I think People Who Matter, I listened to a couple of episodes already, and with the way you have tuned the entire conversation, even if I don't know the person, I would definitely know the person inside out by the end of any episode. You're doing a great job on that. So
thank you.
So how is it like when companies approached you in just one follow-up question on your previous company, when clients come to you, do they have a lack of brand story and you help them build that brand story? What was the role that you played?
You're talking about podcasting, or you're talking about the other company?
Yeah, the first company, Excel Productions.
Yeah, so it was basically, I think it was supplemental brand stories, because we weren't big enough to provide complete brand content for them. I don't think we were the right people for them, but we were like the offshoot wings of advertising and PR companies that were working for them. So if they needed a story for a brand, featuring just the positives that they're doing, CSR was a huge word then. It still is, but back then it was like a new innovative word that came to the Indian market. So we would do a lot of CSR, NGO films for companies, etc., which would add on to their complete brand profile. I'm not saying we handle the entire brand. Today for startups, we're doing that. So Excel Corporation itself has integrated a content communication division ever since the podcast picked up. And today we are a wholesome, we provide brand services for startups as well. That's what we've become today. So we're not just a HR virtual setup, but we've become an extension of, so we've become a very startup friendly space. Like you come to us, we're a one-stop. You get everything right here. And apart from, of course, our bigger clients, which are Fortune 500s, Indian business houses, MSMEs, we of course cater to all of them. But there we've primarily kept it as an HR training focused kind of a service. Yeah.
Yeah, I read about that. That's why I was like, there were like a lot of clients mentioned, and I was not sure how Excel Corporation was actually catering to those clients. That's amazing. So that means if a company is set up in India and is starting out in India, they can reach out to you for recruitment as well as creating content for them on social media or otherwise.
Brand development. We'll call it as brand development. So yes, they can reach out to us for all HR services, not just recruitment, but complete HR services and complete brand and brand related services. So we've become that in India, but we also service for HR. We've always serviced clients in Singapore and Australia as well, Dubai as well. Yeah. So HR-wise, we're a very well-established company in India. We're one of the top 10 in Bangalore city. We're one of the top 3. So that way, I think we've established ourselves as a name to reckon with when it comes to the HR business. In the podcast space, yes, individually, my podcast has done extremely well and it stands out among the podcasts which are in the market for sure. But as a brand entity, we're still developing our services for sure. But we've got some excellent clients right now for the brand as well.
Amazing. So, like, do you have a team focused for just video editing and camera and all of those? Like, how big is a People Who Matter team? Like, do they come up with themes for every season? Like, I know you've had 2 seasons and some are only available on Audible. So, what does
So,
that go for?
sure. So I'll add in there. We've had 3 seasons. The first 2 seasons are available on every streaming podcast platform. That's what helped us build our subscriber base. And then Audible approached us for an exclusive deal in season 3. So right now, for 1 year, we're exclusive with Audible. Season 3 launched on Jan 17, 2021. We recorded the complete thing during COVID. It has some excellent speakers. I mean, you have to listen to them. We've got the heads of Bajaj Life Insurance. We've got authors like Chitra Banerjee. We've got the best voices in India. We've got some of the best marketers, content providers, fintech, technology heads. So you just have to tune into that season in Audible. It's People Who Matter by Bhargavi or People Who Matter podcast. You'll get it there. Okay. Funny story. I started as a one-woman team. So People Who Matter podcast was started in 2018, November. And this was really one of those times when my mind was autopilot again. Like I had no clue what was happening, I couldn't make one day different from the other. Every day was the same. The problems were same, the struggles were same, the threats were same, and the opportunities were same. And I was extremely bored with what I was doing. Clearly, I mean, that's a simple and plain answer. I love my company. I love what it's given to me, and I would continue developing it. But there can't be any entrepreneur who's been 10 years in the business of the same organization who doesn't wake up and say, oh my God, today what different? I need to do something. Innovation is literally a cry for help sometimes from the tedious, monotonous life that you lead. That's what innovation comes from. Sometimes it's necessity. I totally agree that, if there's a lack of something, then innovation comes. But in my case, innovation has always come when life's monotony has hit me. And that's literally the story of podcast as well. So I used to listen to podcasts when I was holidaying in my sister's place in US. And that is a mature market where podcasts were already available. I mean, fun fact, podcasts have been in the world for the last 17 years. That's a fun fact. Yeah. In India, we know about the word podcast hardly in the last 1 to 2 years. And even in India, there have been podcasters who've been doing work since 2015, 2016. So it's not an extremely new thing. It's just that nobody knows about it. Awareness has always been less about the podcast space. So I'm very thankful to podcasters like you as well, who are making an effort, trying to spread the message of the tribe, as I say. So it's good. More power to tribes like us. But coming back to People Who Matter. So it started as a one-woman army. I had my Apple Mac. I had a GarageBand software to edit and record. I was working in an office space which actually had the equipment and nobody knew how to use it, which was the best part. So I was in a co-working of sorts in a financial international bank. I can't say the name. But it was an international bank space where mostly fintech, technology, and other service providers were sitting. And so we were one of them who got integrated into the system as the HR service providers. And we were trying to find a foothold in Mumbai city. And Mumbai is a very hard place to get a hold of, and address is everything in Mumbai, especially when it comes to business. So it doesn't matter. Like other cities, it really doesn't matter. In Mumbai and Delhi, it's a very important thing. Where you live is pretty much defines who you are and what your business is. So we were lucky that we got invited into this place, which is in Lower Parel, Peninsula Business Park. And we were like, okay, fantastic, 5-star address. We have arrived. And then we arrived. And of course, we made some great business partners, great clients who are still clients of ours today. But it kind of put you back in that, that autopilot, what next mode. And the space had it had a soundproof room of sorts, which was not soundproof. According to them, it was. And there was some equipment and stuff which was stashed away, which was like a mic, there were headphones, some basic recording gear. And I was just, taking a call one of those days and I was twiddling my thumb and I'm like, oh my God, look at this place. It actually has like foam. Oh my God, this actually has like some noise. So, the media, the creative Kida in me, it suddenly was like alive and kicking like, oh my God, what is this place? First time I'm looking at it. I've stared at the same wall for 8 months and I didn't realize that until that one aha moment, the eureka moment that came to me. And then I'm like, oh, okay, this is a fantastic space. I must use it. And that's how my journey into podcasting started. So before People Who Matter, I did a radio show for a friend's company, which is an international music company based in Kerala. And these guys they help indie artists to be found. And they were looking for a radio show. It was actually going to be a radio show. And they wanted it to be continuous for a period of 5-6 months. And I was just like randomly anyway bored and reaching out, and I constantly keep in touch with what's happening in the creative scene. So when I heard it's a startup, so it ticks all my boxes. It was like startup, it was tech driven, it was music, which I love. So I'm like, oh, perfect. I mean, and they approached me, so I was like, why not? Let's like do something for you. So I made a travel show for them from a 2x2 room, which took people
Wow.
around the world just with me sitting in my studio. It was super fun. I used to
Wow.
record it after my office hours. So it was after 7:38 in the night. I would stay back in the office, do my show for 1 hour, and then I would like carry on with the rest of my night. So in Bombay, even 9 o'clock is known as evening. It is still, oh, how's your evening going, right? So it's not. And what was in Bangalore, like, okay, good night. Sorry, we disturbed you at 9 p.m. And you're like, what are you saying? I'm out. I'm like, I'm having my evening now. So yeah, basically, so the culture helped that Bombay sleeps late, so it was good for me. So anyway, my meeting, my social life would start after 1 more hour. So I had that time to fill it up with a radio show. It was called Escape with Bhargavi. It's still available
Definitely
as a
gonna check
podcast.
it out.
Yeah, so you should go check it out. It was real fun. I had super fun making it. So that was like my practice test.
Mm-hmm.
Like after 6 years, I was back on a mic. It took. I didn't do any voiceovers. I didn't do any films in that 6 year period. And so for me, I had to relearn everything, like my voice modulation, volume, editing. How fast could I do it? How slow am I at it? So these things were very important for me to pick up again. So I think the show really helped me experiment. Once I got done with this, I'm like, okay, I can launch a podcast. Like this is not bad. I've done this. So I did it for 6 months with the radio show. And then I was like, November 2018, I was like, let's start a podcast. I did my research on how to start up. We had literally no material about it in India. And everything that I know, even today, a lot of material that you have is all US oriented or Dubai oriented. You don't have indigenous Indian material for it. So here's where I'm plugging in another marketing thing, which I'm now famous for. I have recently authored a book, which is like a beginner's guide to podcasting. So
Wow.
it is going to be published in a month, and soon it'll be available to everyone. So it's from an Indian perspective, and it's from a first person account. So all my mistakes, my journey, and all the good things that happen, all the bad things that happen that you can avoid as a podcaster, and use podcasting to earn money as well. I think that is the aim of the book. Not just take it up as a hobby, but please make it as a skill that you can, monetize out of. I think today that's very important. If people are spending any kind of time, even on TikTok, they're looking to become influencers and they're looking to earn some money out of it. So anyone, anywhere, of course, we believe in a social cause. We want to provide the messaging for free. But I think you will only stick your neck out in the game if there's some monetary value attached to it. So hence, I think podcasting is the next big thing. Audio is the next big thing, guys. Clubhouse is here. I don't have to say more. So people are really, even the elitist people are now going back to saying, oh my God, I'm on Clubhouse. It's so cool. I'm invited to a private room. And you're like, haha, welcome back to audio. Good for podcasters, like guys. So I'm really happy. And it's the age of audio for sure. So I think good things are out there for all of us. So People Who Matter started as a one-person army. And because I was trained in editing and everything else, it became super easy. So in my book, I actually shared lessons of how you can do it on your own, and share very useful websites which helped me, which I didn't know. Like there was a transcription website. I had to transcribe a 25-minute podcast, and it was hell. And I hired interns to do it for me because I'm like, I can't do this, boss. I have to run a company. So somebody has to be there to do the grunt work. And I'm like, please, intern, please. I mean, there's an opportunity of a lifetime. Come on, do it. So I really sold it to them. And they did a fab job. They're also mentioned in the book, and they became like my next team. So they were more, I hired people more to market the podcast because I knew I can edit it and I can present it. But how do you make people aware of what is podcast, right? That is a challenge forever. Like I started with my own family. I asked my parents, do you know what a podcast is? And they just stared at me like, is it another thing that you're doing? And I'm like, yes, it is the next new thing that I'm doing. It's true. So I was the first podcaster of my like family, extended family, friends circle. Nobody knew about podcasting in India. So I actually, with my team, we started making these these really small snippets. Like now Insta Reels has come, but it was the Reels of the time. We made 15-30-second small snippet videos. We would put it out as posts and stories everywhere on what is a podcast. And they were multilingual things. So it was like in Tamil, Telugu, Bengali, Punjabi, Bhojpuri, Hindi, English. It's there on our, if you go to my Instagram and my Twitter feed, which is Bhargavi86, if you go there and see it, you'll find the entire wall covered with those posts that we put up in 3 years back now. It was super fun. We had a lot of fun making them, and it's real fun. Like, it's like Chota Packet, Bada Dhamaka, and cute catch things like that we put up. So people get attracted to what is a podcast. At least they have some, recall value, and start listening to different podcasts. Yeah, so that was People Who Matter ka story. But season 3, we definitely I hired professional editors because we were tying up with a bigger platform. We were providing to a worldwide release. So one advantage of People Who Matter was it's always a worldwide show. It's never been an India show because getting 2 million downloads in India is impossible. We don't have that kind of a listenership. We don't have that kind of culture of podcast listening in India. Though, as per data, it's 43 million people in India tune into podcasts now, apparently. I am not sure how long they stick onto a show. Like if it's a 15-minute show, I don't know if they're listening to just your intro and tuning off, or are they listening to 5 minutes and tuning off, or 20 minutes. We don't have that kind of data and statistics yet to point out and say this is the drop area. This is where they pick it up, unlike mature markets. So most of my listenership, of course, big chunk of it came from India because it was about Indian founders, Indian businesses, Indian startups. But it was also very interesting for people who are looking to invest in India. India is a great marketplace right now. Everybody's looking to invest in India. They want a skin in the game in the Indian big story. So my listenership is also extremely large in US and Canada, Australia, Dubai, Singapore. These also build the remaining 49% of my listenership. So I'm very grateful that that happened. I hosted it in a site which was not an Indian site because nothing was available. So I mean, there was no choice. I had to host it on a US server. And because I hosted it there, it kind of gave me the reach that I wanted. It gave me everyone. So that was a story of success that happened to me. And today it's a lot different. I think there's a lot of good content in India. A podcast is going regional. We have some very successful regional podcasts in Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Bengali, Bhojpuri. I mean, they're really fun podcasts. I listen to a couple of them because I'm a linguist. I've grown up in different parts of India. So I can understand a lot of languages and a bit of abroad. So I listen to certain shows just to better my show as well. It's research. Everything is research now. So you listen to it and you're like, what is out there? Oh, wow. Okay, I can do something else. So we went one step further from People Who Matter. Now we produce podcasts for brands. So now, like I said, we're a brand solutions team for companies. So we make tailor-made podcasts for brands. So if you're like a fitness brand, I'm making a fitness podcast for you. If you're a sports brand, I'm making a sports podcast for you. So that's what we've now gotten to do. And we've shown it with our own success story. I didn't have to take someone else's money and build a brand out of it. I did it in my own company, my brand. So that kind of is my MVP. It's like, look at it. My MVP is ready. I've succeeded. This is the amount I've turned over because at the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur. That has to kick in. The business sense, the ROI has to kick in. It doesn't go away just because I'm creative. So yeah, I think this time around I'm much better in my creative and content journey as a podcaster, I would say, than I was as a kid of Excel production, I would say.
That's amazing. So you keep answering a lot of these questions that I have. So thank you so much for covering all of those points. Like I have there are like bunch of questions in my mind right now from the answer. So one thing, I do understand that Clubhouse is for iOS only, and but then 97% of I think India uses Android. So do we for the young podcasters out there, do we have to feel guilty about not having our podcast on Apple Podcast, or is it okay to get your subscribers regionally from other podcast platforms?
All right, very good question. Because had you asked me this 3 years ago, I would have been like, Apple Podcast is Bible, right? Because there was nothing else. Spotify was just entering the market. Audible had not even entered the market. JioSaavn did not exist in podcast. Gaana was not then podcast. We don't have Kuku FM. We didn't have Khabri. We didn't have a lot of platforms. Today, there's so many, right? So 3 years back, I will tell you a very funny experience also is mentioned in my book, but I registered for this Apple podcasting as soon as my first episode was ready in People Who Matter. I applied to it through my RSS feed to Apple. And that time, it was a big deal. Apple was rejecting a lot of non-US based podcasts, at least. That's what I came to know. Unless your quality is okay. Because they had a huge problem with people not following sound, sound editing and sound requirements, which make a very decent Apple podcast. I don't blame them at all. If I was in their space, I would want people to hear good stuff on my platform. Instead of anything and everything, right? And that also kind of shapes the podcaster to get better at their game. If I was at level 1, I would like to be level 15 because Apple would then let me come in. And that improves my game as a podcaster. I always look at negative criticism or rules and regulations like this. I always think of, okay, why is it there? Okay, is it going to help me improve? Great. If I can get there, then good for me as well. Like, I mean, I know it sounds snooty. It really sounds snooty when you think of Apple as a brand. I mean, I'm guilty of having Apple products and I'm a huge endorser of Apple, but I understand from a population standpoint, making something exclusive to iOS makes it very elitist and very snooty. However, it kind of helps you up your game as well. If you look at it from that way, it's all a perspective change. So 3 years back, when I woke up one morning, and this was after I submitted to Apple, it used to take at least 7 to 11 days to get okayed by Apple. That's the amount of time it took, okay? And it may or may not happen. And if Apple doesn't take it up, then there are very few options left for you to put your podcast. There's only Google Podcast left. YouTube, you can put it as a static podcast with just one image going, and people hopefully listening to that one thing. Nobody listens to anything on YouTube. They watch things, right? So your chances are very less. So it was very important Apple said yes to your podcast, because then through Apple, you will get recasted in other places like Overcast, Stitcher, and those things, which were in US. So 7 days later, I would periodically just check my work mails, and I would go and check my podcast mails. And there I saw this Apple acceptance, and I squealed. I squealed like I got into some college or something. I was like, oh my God. And my entire staff floor was like, what's wrong with her? Why is she behaving like this? And it was in the middle of a work office. It was in the middle of a financially heavy setup. And I was like jumping up and squealing, saying, Apple Podcast got mine. Apple Podcast said okay to mine. And they're like, okay, TK, thanks. We're on calls. Please keep it low. And I'm like, you don't share my joy, but you don't know what a big deal this is. But it was a big deal. So that time, Apple Podcast was a huge thing. Today, like you rightly pointed out, 97% have Android phones. And nothing wrong with it. So obviously, you have to go to platforms which are conducive to your recording devices. People are recording in different things. They're editing in Audacity. They're editing in Adobe Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro for Apple people. So there are all kinds of different editing softwares as well. So whatever's conducive for your editing software to share it with, please go ahead. I always say there's always a listener for every single podcast. You don't have to aim for 2 million. It happens. Sometimes it happens. It's like a random video going viral.
Yeah.
So it's like that. So, I mean, I'm not saying this is that. It took me 3 years to get here. So it's a lot of hard work, sweat, moonlighting as a podcaster. I did a lot of that. But I'm just saying, if you are a podcaster, start only because of passion. Don't start because of anything else. Because like you have to come every Saturday and put out a show out there. You have to sacrifice yours. So you're inviting a guest only one Saturday of their life. But this is every Saturday of your life. So you have to be... You have to be committed. You have to be consistent as a podcaster. If you can't do that every time you have promised your people that there's a show coming out, there's really no point being a podcaster, is what I would say. So if you have a platform which is conducive to your device and your software that you're using, please go ahead and use it. Now there is really no difference between this platform and that platform. Apple used to be the gold standard. Somewhere I feel, maybe I'm an older school of podcaster now. It's just been 3 years, but I've become an old school myself. So, I mean, for me, it became gold standard. And Apple rated my podcast as 5 on 5 within the first 1 month of release. We just put up 2 episodes. We only used to do, thank you. I'm very proud of that. All the other awards as a CEO I get, it's cool. Thank you for that. But this is like hard work. It's like, it comes from a very deep place. So when they gave me a 5 on 5 in 1 month of podcasting, that was my real validation that I'm a podcaster. Like, my content is good. People are listening, not just in India, but in mature podcasting markets. That was very important to me, because in a new market, anything you give, it'll be like accepted sometimes, because you don't know any better. You've not seen anything else. Now, if in a mature market, your podcast is able to establish itself as a game changer, and people from there are writing in and saying, hey, I listened to your podcast. It's really good. Yeah. I mean, I can't believe you're a first time podcaster. These were the kind of reviews and feedbacks I used to get. And I was like, oh, day is made, life is made. This is the best day of my life. It still is. I mean, even now when I get a positive comment, I'm over the moon. Like, that whole day, I'll be having this huge smile on my face. My husband like, you look creepy. And I'm like, I don't care. I got a great review. Today is my day. So yeah, it's basically that.
So just a curiosity, have you ever felt autopilot after starting People Who Matter?
No, I take seasonal breaks because of that. I knew I will get into an autopilot if I do like 100 episodes continuously, which is what is suggested as a podcaster. They say a podcaster builds their subscriber base only after crossing continuously, 1 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 200. I feel in a non-fiction podcast like mine is, which is like a interview style, which is more like a talk show, and it's like a value add and it's entertainment, because in season 3, just to put it out there, we have a never have I ever section with our guests, which is super fun. They spill the secrets that they've never done before on a very proper public platform, which is a lot of fun. We also have something called the mantras of success, where they actually point out just 3 mantras they've adopted, which might help you to probably overcome whatever you're going through and get successful. So the format also has to change for you to not be on an autopilot. And forget about you; it's your listener, right? They can't be like, "Oh, she's back again," or "She's going to do the same thing," and what is the big deal, right? So I always listen to any podcast as a listener, including mine. If I am getting bored in the edit, I'm like, this is not going to work, trash the episode. Like, just be indifferent to it and trash it. Because if you can't enjoy it as a listener, trust me, nobody else is duty bound to love your podcast. Nobody else, except for maybe your mom and dad, out of like, oh my God, I gave birth to this one, might have to listen to its podcast. Only because of that, they might go and like and review and share. But nobody else is duty bound to listen to your podcast, including your boyfriends, girlfriends, partners. They'll be like, please, babe, no, not this. So unless you are able to enjoy your content, please don't put it out there. Nobody else is going to enjoy it. So that's my strict advice to anybody who puts it. So I take seasonal breaks, coming back to it. So I've already only done 29 episodes. That's it. People Who Matter only has 29 episodes. So it's an easy listen. It's not like, oh my God, there's so much to catch up on. And you can pick and choose. There are different topics. Each topic addresses something that I thought was a concern. So as a HR person, I used to hear a lot of these queries on my HR handles, where people would write to me on LinkedIn on Bhargavi Swami, and they'd be like, ma'am, I'm not getting a job. What are the skill sets required for an actual person to succeed in an interview? My English is really weak. How do I succeed? Or I want to make a career in marketing, but how do I get there? Or what are the new opportunities in tech? What are the kind of startups I should look at? I'm from a small town. How do I feel very, I feel very small when it comes to a lot of my colleagues from the other spaces. How do I build my confidence? These are very real problems of people. And People Who Matter literally started to tell everybody, you may be a CEO, you might be just a peon in a company, or you might be an aspirant intern anywhere. It's for you. You matter. That's what the show is about. People who matter are literally, for me, people you matter. And for you guys, whatever your problems are, listen to this episode, it might give you an answer. Listen to their story, it might help you out. Listen to my story, it might help you out too. So there's something for everyone in People Who Matter. It's just 29 episodes. So I keep it that way because I enjoy short content. I also don't want a lengthy thing which never ends. Opposite to that is a story. Now, there are a lot of podcasts which are retelling the Mahabharata, retelling Bhagavad Gita, or adapting it to real life, retelling the Ramayana. Now, these podcasts can't be short because obviously these are epics. You have to have 100, 200, 800,000 episodes. So for me, those kind of podcasts having that kind of a timeline consistency works better. Compared to a non-fiction podcast trying to have 100 episodes, I'm sure somewhere the podcaster will sound repetitive, monotonous. There aren't 100 selves to yourself. I mean, I'm a Gemini. I think there are 20 people inside me. Even I can get exhausted after 20 episodes. So for people who are not Geminis, God help you. I don't know how you're doing it for 100 episodes. So,
God. Thank you for that. So I just want to know a little about your HR recruitment part. One question that I had was, does your company make use of ATS, or do you use AI in any way to filter the amount of resumes that flow in for a particular domain or industry? How does that process go by?
Okay, so we started out as a HR consulting firm when things were still traditional, very manual in terms of how you source resumes. Yes, in the last 6 years, we've changed. We moved to an ATS and an AI model, but we do a third party through it. So we don't really have our own app. We didn't want to invest in one because there were already so many in the market. So we use that to kind of filter the first process. But however, I would say we work on very niche requirements. As a recruitment company, we don't work for 100 openings. Let me be clear, we don't do bulk hirings at all. So if anybody is looking to connect with us, it's actually for positions you're not able to close. So we are always the nth hour consulting company that they come to. They've tried something for 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, it's not happening. Go to Excel Corporation, it'll happen within 15 days. That is our client review. That is how we are. So that's the kind of business model we built, because we don't want to become another Naukri monster times. Is enough for that. There are enough people in the market for that, and there are a lot of companies who invested in AI, ATS, in human resources and not seen success either. See, human resources is about human touch points, and that is one basic core value of the business that a lot of people miss. Unless your first points of contact for any company, right, are the human resource executives of a consulting firm. We are the brand ambassadors for a client. If my client is XYZ, And most clients are not Tata Birlas. Not everybody's brand is brilliantly known outside, unless they, start building their brand story. That's a secondary thing. So we are the
Yeah.
first people who tell people about your brand. So we should be convinced that I'm working for an ethically sound company. It's a company that's not going to shut down tomorrow. My hygiene check for my client is very important. That's how I work as a consultant, because somebody's career is in my hands. Somebody's family depends on that one person earning, and that one person earning might get or might not get a job because of me or my team. So
Got it.
that is a perspective with which we look and approach work. We don't approach it as a blockchain, AI, filter 20 CVs, choose whichever the computer throws up at you and take it. No, we're more specialized than that. Of course, we use AI and ATS to initially sift out the bulk, but we actually have human touch points to interview these candidates through video and audio to understand who they are, what is their background, why are they changing, what are their vulnerabilities, what might prompt them to change again in 1 year. Why are they dating? Why have they continued working in one company for more than 5 years? Because today 5 years is a big deal being in one company, right? It's almost like how our parents used to work for 25 years in one company. Today 5 years is equivalent to that, because everybody is changing in 1 year, 2 years, and becoming a entrepreneur after that. So nobody
Yeah.
really wants to work for anyone anymore, unless situations like COVID make you realize how important money and salary is, and then you come back and you're ready to work anywhere. So I think it's a full circle that comes. But as a company, we've still not given up the core human touch point values, which is very essential for our kind of business. And that is what is created. I mean, that is what has given us success, because we're able to customize a candidate for a company's requirement. And today, the more tech driven the company is, the lesser AI related candidates you can give them, because they themselves can create, apps and models and sifters to go through and find these 10 CVs. It's not difficult at all. Why do they have to come to me? They have to come
Yeah.
to me because I provide that extra expertise which they lack. So yes, that's the way.
Amazing. So all through these 10 years and the 3 years of People Who Matter, if you were to name your top three challenges, uh, especially now that we had a pandemic in between, I understand that, but
Oh my God.
if
Yeah. Challenges. So every day is a challenge. There's no top three. But okay, highlight points. I would say opportunities. I wouldn't even call them challenge, because what we do with the opportunity is up to us, but at least seeing them as opportunity and game changers and business shifters. So 2010, the year I got out, was 2 years after the biggest recession India had 2008. And then 2010 was just as bad, because market was just opening up, but there weren't enough jobs in the market for everyone. That also prompted people like me to start up my own company, because I realized that I'm one of the lucky few who has that muscle power where I'm not the primary earner of my family. They're not dependent on my salary. So I could have the liberty to start something, try it out, maybe pass, maybe fail at it. I don't know. But so I've seen that. I started with that. So for me, money and having running capital was always a very, very important thing in an organization, in a business, because I started paying salaries at the age of 23. So I know the importance of giving somebody a monthly salary. I know the responsibility of having that much in your account so you can pass on salaries. It doesn't matter if you take home the money. Please understand, life of an entrepreneur is captain of the ship. You get all the rewards last. At least we are those kind of entrepreneurs, not the ones who swindle and run to another country. But we are the ones who want to stay here, build a business, help people, help their families, help ourselves. So yeah, I mean, you're the last person to receive anything. That is what an entrepreneur is. So you have to constantly be funded for you to fund others. So that was one of the biggest learnings, I would say, not even a challenge, that I faced in 2010, 2011, when the business was, slowing down. The second thing came across when I was shifting cities. So my husband, I told you, was a media lawyer. So he was changing jobs. He's a corporate professional. He's not an entrepreneur. So whenever he moved, I obviously wanted to be with him. So I moved. And there, what I did was, instead of buckling down and saying, oh my God, what am I going to do? Let me just quit my company, or let me keep traveling to and fro. I set up offices wherever I moved. So we were in Chennai. So I set up a branch office of ours in Chennai. Chennai is the automobile capital of India, like the Detroit of US. That's Chennai. So you had the best automobile manufacturing companies. Today, of course, Gujarat is giving Chennai a run for its money. But at that point of time, it had the best automobile companies, right from Daimler, Mercedes, Renault, Volkswagen, everything. So we started coordinating with whichever the area was good for. We started looking at that as an opportunity. So I moved to Chennai, made them as my clients. Of course, tech sector was booming there. They became our next level of clients. A lot of good exchanges in terms of networking with people. Networking always helps people, whoever's listening to this or watching this. Please understand your school network, your college network, your family network. I'm
Mhm.
calling them network. I'm not calling them soul sisters and support groups. They are a different category. I'm calling it network because even today, for a COVID emergency, if you want to reach out to something, you're putting it out on your social media, you're sharing it on your WhatsApp because it's a network of somebody somewhere seeing it, passing it on to someone, getting that help and passing it back to you. Business is also exactly the same. Please use your networks. Don't be too shy about it and reach out to people, tell them what you do because these are opportunities. Don't look at them as, oh my God, how can I approach? I hated this person in class 10 and now today I have to go back to them. Please, I mean, they also have the same feelings towards you, but if it's mutually beneficial, anybody will accept it. Please relax and go out and reach it. There's really no shame in it. So as an entrepreneur, I can stick my hat out and say that. The last, of course, the most recent challenge was, of course, the COVID pandemic. It's crazy.
Mm.
Luckily, we were an all-woman company, so we went virtual 5 years ago because a lot of our staff could not come to office. Bangalore became a traffic hub spot. It is infamous for it till COVID happened. So people couldn't reach our offices without 2 hours of travel, which was crazy amount of time lost. Plus, they're
Yeah.
also homemakers, so they're taking care of a family, they're raising kids, they have elder care. So we were like, please don't take tension about commute of all the things. We'll give you a laptop, we'll give you an internet connection, work from home. And we started working from home 5-6 years ago. So that
Wow.
way it was a smooth ride. It wasn't much. Only thing, I'm sorry, I was not going to office. I was going to office till that last point of time. But the minute I stopped, I also realized that now my clients are also okay for meetings. Earlier, we had to travel from one point to another point, which is 40 kilometers away, just to sign papers.
Right.
This was reality of not just me, all businesses in India, especially if you're the CEO, the entrepreneur, they want to see your face before they sign on documents. It's some kind of surety, trust issues we have as a country, for sure. COVID has changed that trust issue into do it as long as you have a digital signature which is recognized, that's more than enough. Let's just do the business on that. I don't care if you can't physically, don't come. If you have COVID, please don't come. I'll get it, my family will get it. So please relax. Unless you have a negative test, don't walk into my office doors. And you're like, thank God, thank you. I saved so much time. Because it was crazy. I mean, in Bombay, I used to travel from like Lower Parel, which is south part of Bombay, to Thane, just to go and show my face for an introduction meeting. And I may or may not even get that client. It was just a practicing. So it was such a waste, colossal waste of time. So I'm so happy that the world has moved on. And I think these are the main challenges that I faced, which we took as opportunities and converted it. So recognize your challenge. It doesn't have to be as big as pandemic. It can be anything, which can be a challenge in your life. You're not having that space to work from home could be a challenge, and then that could be your business idea as well. A lot of people are making like furniture, which is in the daytime it works as an office table, in the night it becomes like a baby bed and all that. Like this crazy amount of innovation going on, during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
And the headphone sales are over the roof. Boat has made the maximum money during this COVID pandemic because everybody wants a noise-free noise cancellation, so they feel like they're working in an office and they don't want to be part of the cooker going in the room next door. So, I mean, that's what the world has come to. So, yeah, you're just trying to find innovation and challenges.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing those points. I mean, every challenge is something that you get to learn from. So that's amazing. And if you were to give any 2 cents to an entrepreneur or a woman who is hesitant to start her own company or her own idea, what would be that?
Heavy question, but okay. So I was always raised as a child. Okay, they raised me in a very gender neutral way. My parents, they have 2 daughters, me and my sister. So they never told us that girls can do this, boys can do that. I think they also didn't have a choice because both of us were girls. So like, where can you go, right? What would you tell us? So I know how to, my dad taught me how to repair a car very early. I used to help him repair, fuses and wires and bulbs around the house. So did my sister. So very well trained. And our mom used to train us, like you must sing and you must know how to dance and you must know, kitchen work. And my mom is a math teacher. So she would be like, maths is very important. Even while buying vegetables, it's very important to learn the basics. You should know how much you're paying, what is the market value, how much are you saving in it, monthly budget. So these are very important life skills. So, I mean, if you're a youngster, you're listening to it, please don't discount what your parents are trying to teach you or your grandparents are trying to teach you at a very young age. Everything is useful. Like the stories my grandmom told me as a kid, today I'm using it as a fictional podcast. Go figure.
Oh, wow.
Anything and everything in life is useful. So I'll start with, if you're a woman today wanting to get into business, you should have a very strong support system, especially as a woman, because the world is still not very equal. Let's call it what it is. It's getting there. It's definitely way better, but a lot of expectations are still on the woman to change, to do, to modify. Your career has to somehow revolve around everybody in the house. It's still not changed. I mean, however progressive we think. Even me, even my career, I have designed it also in a way, though I'm achieving and everything. But there was a point of time in my life where I had to design it around circumstances in my family, health issues, financial issues, anything else. So I stopped from expanding. I stopped from, doing a lot of things I would have done. I waited to start my podcast 2 years later than I had planned because of family going through certain things. So get the support from the family, talk to your family members, tell them about your dreams and aspirations. And also, they are your first focus group, guys. Literally, it works. If you have any idea, right, first test it out on your family. Okay, you want to say, I want to start a catering business. Test it out on your family. They will be the people who ask you all the right questions. How much will you price it? Do you know what the price of wheat and atta and rice and dal is? Do you know what your distribution will be like? And your family will also become your first word of mouth for anything that you do. Whether it's a tech product you're developing, whether it's a atta maker you're developing, a baking company or a gifting company, handmade gifts, cards. Your family, one is they become your first focus group, they're your first test group, your first batch of anything you made. Ask them to rate it, review it, let them, spread the word. They hate it, they love it. Their feedback is very important, very constructive. And also, this is like free. You're getting the advice of a team member. It's like that. It's you don't even have to hire people. Just please use the help which is around the house and make a business, start a business, and only hire when you can pay. Is my constant advice, constant say to anyone. Don't overpromise, underdeliver. So take it 2-3 months into what you can do on your own, or if you get an investor backing, or if you have a partnership, somebody who's equally like-minded like you, does not need the money immediately, both of you can invest a bit and then come together as partners and then build something. I think that is fantastic. But your family is your first people, network, rally group, marketing group, test group, review group, criticism group, everything all combined together. So for women out there, start getting the support of your family. Secondly, set very realistic expectations for yourself. I was interviewing this amazing gentleman. He was the former CEO of Money Control. And then he started a company called Markets Mojo, Mr. Mohit Batra. He told me, so when people who matter, it's there. So he told me a fantastic thing. He said, any startup, right, the first 5 years are very important. That will really determine whether the entrepreneur will continue with that startup or not. If you cross that 5-year mark, it's like a relationship. If you cross the first 7-year mark, then it's a relationship mostly for life. Most often, that's what happens. Or a friendship for life, it becomes like that. Same with a startup. If you cross the first 5 years of a startup, success, failure, challenges, everything you take on board, and you still are afloat and you're somehow monetizing, you're somehow making money, something is coming in, then it is a startup for life. That means your idea is good, it's viable, it will be there for the future, but you have to keep innovating. Even that basic principle or the basic idea has to innovate. So that is something I think for a startup, plan your first 5 years very well. When I say plan, I mean one is business model. There are a lot of Google searches that will tell you what a business model is, what you need for it, etc. Secondly, plan your finances for the next 5 years, because as an entrepreneur, right, you can't take the money out of the company before the first. I think personal experience, it takes at least 3 to 4 years before you start making some sort of a good profit that you can take out from a company. You probably pay yourself monthly salaries. That's fine, because you need to run a house too, or you need to, just make sure your basic commitments are done. But in terms of profit, what you really started the business was for that cream, which is the profit, which you don't get as an employee. That you start making only after the first 2 to 3 years. If you're lucky, you start at the right time. There are very few businesses. I think 0.05% of the businesses will earn and become profitable in the first 6 months. There are many success stories, but I think let's be pragmatic. Let's say, okay, we are not part of the lucky few or the ones with that kind of a commitment. I think then 2-3 years for sure. Once you start making your profits, then start investing it into your own business. Like invest into better manpower, invest into better technology partners, invest into better sales, invest into those kind of avenues which will bring you more business. And take, of course, a little share for yourself as well to, reward yourself for your good work. But the main thing should always go back into the business so you can build the business for a longevity, for sure.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful summary. Like, I think you've had the most experience doing so many, multiple startups. This is going to be my Dhamaka episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you so much for your time. Wishing you all the best and hope we stay connected. And I'm definitely going to check out all of the things that we had and buy the book as soon as it's out.
Okay. Absolutely. I'll send you the links. It's still a month away. We're still in publishing and marketing. Pre-marketing is going on, so it's going to take some time. But thank you so much. It was really nice, Julian. It didn't feel like it's the first time I'm chatting with you. It really felt like I know you for a long time. We were just chatting over coffee. I wish times were better and we were doing that. But nevertheless,
Yeah.
I'll take this as a Saturday afternoon with a friend. So thank you, Julian. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
That's it for today. Hope you liked it. If you enjoyed this episode, do share it with your friends. And don't forget to hit follow on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stay tuned for more episodes and stay safe.